Welcome back to another LinuxGameCast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, are you bad at social interactions? ? Well, now you can practice your eye physics, and Steam is going to force developers to show an actual screenshot of the game, because apparently that's still a thing in 2016.
Is someone trying to buy out CD Projekt RED? Well, let's spin the wheel of Booga Booga to find out who. And the Black Mesa devs explain why Zen is so slow. And QEMU was better anyways, let's be honest.
Didn't get to attend Steam Dev Days? Well, now you can watch all the keynotes at your leisure. And Unity basically pulls an AMD. They're open sourcing their VR-oriented editor for the community to sort it.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, doing this nightmare train every week with our man up north, Master Fang. What's up, baby?
What's up? What's going on? Where am I? Who am I?
I don't know. How are things over in Space Portugal with Pedro Mateas?
Cold. Very cold. And
together with Chat Realm Dynamic helping us form that integral last bit of Cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in the news. Not the news, in our lives. I guess that could be news. How does that work out?
It could be new.
I'm frightened by it, but that's probably part of my mind skip, because I've been in a funk for since this time change, because your body is like, man, it's 6:30. It's dark. It should be 7:30, but we're finally going to change back to regular time, so hopefully that will help. What's up, Pedro?
Well, like I mentioned, I got a bit of a cold. I don't know how, I don't know when, but yeah, it's here right now, and that's what matters. And I'm struggling, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, if you don't pick up all the loose change on the street and put it in your mouth, maybe you won't get sick. Just a thought. Over here on this end, I've set up a little new pet project I'm hacking away on just to keep myself busy. Setting up OpenStack using Ansible to generate virtual machines that are then configured by Ansible. So that's going. It's interesting. I like to. It's some sysadmin work that I'm not getting paid for because I need to find a job. Anyways, speaking of jobs, a bunch of people in a place were talking about theirs, and they recorded it. And the horse has something to say about it, don't they?
Yeah, because it's the Steam
Linux
update.
Halloween. Right.
Yep, it's the Steam Dev Days 2016. They happened earlier last month, and basically only game developers who have their games on Steam were invited to attend, and they got a nice bag full of swag, which included a Steam controller and a Steam Link and a bunch of other stuff. So if you see more games coming out on Steam with proper Steam controller support, that's probably why. But yeah, no, they recorded everything, all the keynotes, all of the panels, all the talks. It's all there. There'll be a link in the show notes. It's just a YouTube playlist. I'm sure you can still find it if you find the original page for the Steam Dev Days on the Steam store. I think they put it up there as well.
Why even do that? Because the link's in the show notes. You can just go there to linuxgamecast.com/whatever this podcast is called.
Indeed,
yeah,
there are a couple of interesting talks or keynotes you should be paying attention to. There's one about bringing Unity games to SteamOS and Linux, which is presented by Natosha Bard. She's one of the lead developers of the Unity engine, and she's the one who's actually been working on SDL2, getting proper SDL2 implemented into the Unity engine. Now, someone really cocked up her audio quality, not in a good way either. And Jordan also put there in the notes that the other talk that was worthwhile was the Vulkan one, which had a bunch of different developers from a bunch of different places, including
NVIDIA, Epic,
Crow Team, and
that's there was one.
That was the one I was able to power through most of it, 3/4 of the way through, and I was, this is a serious issue I have. Because if you want to activate my nope switch, just, give me some of that bad audio, incorrect levels. And I was genuinely thinking about downloading the video, ripping the audio, fixing the audio, re-encoding the video and watching it on Plex, and I was like, just let it go. Let it go.
No. They're all interesting talks. Though I do feel that the one Miss Bard put out was a little lackluster because it's a lot of I suppose it's a lot of stuff that we already know being entrenched in Linux games. But I guess it's good to be able to point someone to a video resource. The Vulkan talk, though, the panel with the 5 dudes, actually, because there were actually 5 dudes. Well, it was really fascinating, especially hearing the Crow Team devs talking about how they were implementing Vulkan with the incomplete spec and sort of hoping that it doesn't catch fire, only to be pleasantly surprised when they came out the other end of it. It's all with your time, so you should definitely.
I made it a point to also watch the early access one that they did, and that whole talk was just a bunch of pricks talking about their egos, artificially inflated egos, mind you.
Well, I mean, if you want that first-hand experience, you can always just bother us, and we'll give you the emails to the Overgrowth dev team, and they can knock your ass off.
Let's talk about some Steamy updates, though, because they did update the beta.
They did, and apparently it noped Ven's Steam install, but it didn't nope mine. Ha 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 ha! Fedora for the win. They patched a couple issues, specifically if those of you who are running ZFS on Linux, if BTRFS is a little too complicated for you, you can run into a bunch of Steam issues. Because remember, you always got to turn on all the crazy features in ZFS like deduplication when you're installing Steam on it. No, but there was a crash they were dealing with that they have subsequently fixed. They've also added the initial work for support of the DualShock 4 controller, this guy right here, which I plugged in. Didn't show up any dialogues, so I was a little disappointed, but that's probably coming down the pipe. They have an option now for 4K streaming if you use Steam streaming stuff. Though, to be fair, most games on Steam don't adequately support 4K like natively. We'll talk about that in the review segment of Deus Ex a little more. But
yeah, one thing I noticed was, because they had to do a little update just a bit later to fix a disk error message when downloading updates or games or anything. I'm always in the betas. It did that, and something you never want to see is when you try to install a game, disk write error.
Yeah.
Nope. Fortunately, I had a little bit of foresight, and I was like, maybe let's step one. Let's just get out of the beta before we, start tearing the world apart and trying to figure out what's going on.
Spin the wheel of Booga Booga to find out what's wrong with your disks.
Exactly, and that was on the Ubuntu 1604. A lot of people suffered from this issue. It's safe to go back into the beta, and you don't have to worry about it. Pedro, did you have it?
Yeah, I'm on Ubuntu 1604 too, Ubuntu Mate more specifically, but I didn't have that. And I saw we were talking earlier in the week, and apparently Strider also suffered from it, and he never has any issues. And apparently it was also affecting Mac people.
As soon as I saw that Strider had it, I was tempted to go back in to the beta because it was probably working.
No. What you don't understand is the reason that Mac users were impacted was because it did specifically affect Strider and therefore everyone else in the world.
Yeah, but on my end, it didn't. But apparently it was a known thing, and there was a bunch of people complaining about it on Valve's GitHub for Steam. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was definitely a thing that happened.
So let's talk about the video game equivalent of posting overly cropped photos on a dating profile website.
Or not.
I mean, it's relevant. Yeah, you gotta provide valid screenshots now for your game on Steam.
That's madness, man. What are they thinking? I want to post it. Wait, or are they going to eat their own medicine? It looks like they are. They're using an example from Dota 2. I'm like, okay, none of this hand-drawn, whatever,
concept
art type stuff, or just like straight lies. Because you do feel bad for sometimes you'll see an early access game, and you can tell that that's the best shot they could get out of the game. And I think that's fair, because the rest of the game's going to look like a lot worse. But why does this even have to be a thing? Well, why is this just getting around to?
Well, I mean, there's lots to talk about improving the Steam clients and forcing games to be a little more quote-unquote honest with their product offering. And so now Steam has mandated on high that if you are going to put a game on the Steam store, all screenshots need to be from the game. Though, Ven, you bring up a very interesting point, though. how are they going to enforce it? Because there's no way to do it.
Easy. Valve's going to write an automated system that will completely cock everything up and cause 9 new problems, and they'll koala gif and never fix it, right?
There's no way an automated solution could possibly work, though. It's going to have to be a community effort, and we know how well community moderated efforts can be, right?
Yeah, no. But this comes as part of the Discovery Update 2.0 that is supposedly coming to the Steam store later on, probably this year, although Valve time, so expect it around March 2017. But yeah,
That's
this
generous,
comes...
Pedro.
It's more aimed at developers rather than the end user, and I'm guessing it's a way to curb stuff like No Man's Sky to prevent that from even happening. Because No Man's Sky to this day still has just outright false information in those screenshots and in those trailers, because the game doesn't look like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of yawn worthy, but at the same time, in principle, it's a good idea, because don't false advertise your game. Actually show what you're going to be displaying, and then people won't leave shitty. Well, who am I kidding? People will leave shitty reviews. This is the internet. What am I talking about? But speaking of community moderated efforts, here's one that actually kind of worked out. This is another update from Black Mesa. We got the spoopy update last week, bringing the Linux support. And Pedro asked last week, how come you can't finish the game in its entirety? It hits the Zen section and then it kind of ends. Well, this article sort of goes in depth about how they're completely overhauling the Zen levels. They have a couple reference maps that show the original area, and then the maps that they are going to be implementing within Black Mesa. And it's pretty comprehensive. Like, I'm impressed. I might actually go back and replay all of Half-Life 1 in Black Mesa just to see what this Zen looks like, because it's pretty expansive. There's lots of weird floaty shit, which is what I loved about the original Zen. Weird floaty shit. So they also fixed a couple issues on the Linux client. There's some hitching, as they call it, and Russian subtitles, comrades of Solid Stone.
Man, that's definitely
play a game.
Best subtitles by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I don't know. Help me out, Pedro. Convince me to pay 20 wet stinky caches to replay Half-Life 1.
Not at this point.
No.
Once it's finished, I can probably justify it. Mostly because I've already played, there was that guide a while back that was floating around on how to get this running with wine before it even got to Steam. And I played it, and it got to that point where you jump into the portal in order to go to Zen, and it just faded. You couldn't progress beyond that point. And I'm like, well, that's a dick move. But at this point, I wouldn't pay $20.
I wish they'd make it cooperative, like XCOM 2. Gonna give it to
you. Oh yeah. This is actually kind of neat. One of the things when Ven and I were testing out the multiplayer in XCOM basically amounted to one side versus the other, with about a 5-minute lag between turns in the interim. This mod attempts to remedy some of these by adding co-op functionality. Currently, they've implemented 2-man co-op. They're actually petitioning for a little more access to the game's code so that they can implement up to 12 players, which would be kind of insane in XCOM. That would be really cool. But this is what it says on the tin. It is a mod that allows co-op modes to be injected into XCOM 2. Something that I feel that game was lacking. So check this out. We have the Steam community link in the show notes. You can subscribe to it. And yeah, I think this is a really cool idea, and you should give these guys their support.
There's just one, there are some limitations to this mod. One of them is right now, since they are still waiting on approval for the up to 12 people at once, you can only play with one other person at this point, which is nothing short of amazing for a mod, considering the game hasn't really been out all that long. But the other one is that missions where you have a turn timer, quote unquote, you're not being timed, but you have a limited number of turns in order to accomplish something, that doesn't work with this mod. You can't play those missions cooperatively. The reason they do this, or they try to justify this because this is meant to be like guerrilla wars type thing. It's a game mode in XCOM 2. So yeah, good on them for at least, even if it's not perfect, they're upfront about all the shortcomings.
Well, even then, like, you look at the Synergy mod for Half-Life 2, and it just breaks that game in new and exciting ways.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would kind of fix up the Synergy mod where you could save and continue on, because we would definitely be going all the way through Half-Life 2. Get on it.
Well, you know what you can save? Sven co-op. Yep.
Sven.
If you want to replay the original Half-Life with some friends, you can. Yep. And we've already covered this one a while back when the first few versions came out, but it was buggy, very, very buggy, as you'd expect, because like the original Half-Life Gold SRC, the base game wasn't exactly developed with multiplayer in mind. They created an entirely different game just to have people be able to shoot one another. And with Sven Co-op, you can play through the original Half-Life campaign cooperatively, and a bunch of other mods that came out for Half-Life later on that didn't necessarily support co-op. You can actually play those with the Sven Co-op mod. But the biggest thing with the Half-Life campaign is that they fixed some of the triggers, which if a player walked into a room and that triggered something and the door would lock behind them, it would leave everyone else stuck and being unable to progress. They fixed all of the
they think that's a bug? That sounds like a feature.
Yeah, it's supposed
They need to add that for Left 4 Dead for our mode. Outside the safe zone.
Dick move. That would be called a dick move. But yeah, no, they fixed those, and the last final levels on Zen, once again, there was a bug where a certain event wouldn't trigger because there was more than one player triggering it. Now you can actually finish the campaign without having to resort to console commands and having to basically teleport each player one by one into the area.
See, that sounds like a Patreon goal. Brad Life. And Brad Life. The one thing that stood out for me while I'm reading through their patch notes is apparently you can get a Dutch angle now while strafing, and that just sounds kind of dirty.
Well, you know, it could be dirty, and some of your social interactions might also not be
Could they give you pink eye, maybe?
Don't look at the boobs! Don't look at the boobs!
Social interaction trainer. What is it? You never heard of it. Learn how to conduct yourself in social situations with social interaction trainer. I'm guessing this does not really do what it says on the tin because it gives you like an adult warning. It was like, can you adult? I'm like, yeah, possibly. Didn't you, somebody was playing with it with this Game Grumps.
Game Grumps, the YouTube channel. I was watching them. They did a one shot of that. And in the one screenshot they have of the dog, someone farts and you have to use eye contact to blame it on the dog. This entire game is basically like making eye contact, which I would be terrible at because I suck at making eye contact.
Oh no, you'd definitely be one of those people who's like, make eye contact, and I'd be like, why is this motherfucker staring at me? And
pretty much,
yeah.
that is basically how I roll. It's like, too much eye contact. You're not giving me the specific amount of eye contact I need. Fine. Why are there no rules to social interaction? I'm so alone.
Well, apparently there are rules, and this game aims to explain them, sort of, to you.
It has eye physics, and it's like done. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the eye physics involve controlling someone else's lazy eye so that they follow your conversation along. There's another one where you're trying to like allude to someone to check out someone else's boobs. It's interesting. It's 100% YouTube bait, but it's only $5, so if you want to check it out, it's on Linux.
Okay, maybe we'll pick it up and
don't look at the boobs.
Make some stupid commentary over videos like we do. But Gunmetal Arcadium. Zed, check it out, man. It's here.
Yep.
It looks good. I played this billions of years ago back in the future's past because I was like, all right, hipster pixel, but it's done right. I like it. And
it has the CRT filter.
It is definitely a thing.
It's got several CRT filters.
Yeah, I mean, check it out. Maybe you want to give it a green. I want this on Steam so I can exchange and give this guy some money. It has a Linux support. Kind of looks a little Zelda 2-ish, but
A little bit, yeah. I can definitely see that. Actually, the funny thing about the Linux version is if you scroll down, he says, "There's already a Linux version. I will delay the launch by a week for every thread asking for a Linux version." And meanwhile, there are like a dozen Arch users in their basement, just like with their eyes bulging like at the end of Total Recall, trying to contain Arch from Scream at the stick over.
I don't know. I just want to show this guy some love because I follow him on the Twitters, and so if anybody wants this, yeah, give it a yes. Maybe we can help him on that journey. But I think that's gonna do it for the horse this week, baby.
Yeah, the horse is through. It's given its talk. It's stood up on its soapbox, and now it gets back in the little hole it lives in
the horse box
next week. Coming up next, Feral lives long and prospers, and Unity. I don't know, something about reality. I sort of floundered there.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stick around. The news are coming up. But first, we get to shill ourselves.
Yes. Well, we're not the only ones who get to shill, because apparently our good friend Sandy Martin has decided to throw a literal wad of cash in our face, making it rain. And you can too if you want to join in on that insanity. You can go to linuxgamecast.com/support the shows, and we got a lovely screen cap that's a little out of date of our Patreon page. Look at Empty's face up there. He's just so happy that you're giving him money to make those cover arts that he loves so much. They also got Amazon affiliate links. We got PayPal donate buttons. But our preferred means of support is patreon.com/linuxgamecast, because you see, you need to sign up, and that way you can get your value for your value, and it's per episode, so we don't pay anything if we don't put anything out. We're at $149 out of 175 for our regular stream goal. We got a couple other goals, including moving to Kansas and building a log cabin. So if you want to make that happen, start chilling. We also had a way of give recently.
No, we're announcing it.
We have one coming up. That was last week when we had the other way to give. My mind went back in time because don't do drugs, kids.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sit back and pay attention, because we're going to be talking about a game later this evening called Deus Ex, and just came to Linux. And our good friend, Rohit, said, hey, man, I got an extra key for that. Why don't you make a contest? Actually, what he said was like in all caps, Vin, do not include this in hate mail, because it had a Steam key in it. I was like, man, I really thought about changing a couple of letters around and just posting it anyway to watch everyone scramble to try to type that in real quick. But I realized that I would probably end up getting another key matched perfectly for another game for somebody who's been saving for a month to buy this game, and it showed up as invalid because everyone typed that in, or something along those lines. Anyway, how do you play? We like to keep things very simple and very easy. So when this episode is posted on patreon.com/LinuxGameCast, in the comments, we want to know two things. One, if you could augment your body like they do in the Deus Ex, what part of it would you do, or with what, and what would you use it for? That sounds clear enough, right?
Yeah, what would you pick, then? Just out of morbid curiosity.
You know what I picked, man. Ears.
I'd go with lungs. That way
lungs?
I could like breathe anything.
Pedro, you got any thoughts on what would you pick?
Look, my brain immediately went to penis.
Well, okay. Maybe
sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, speaking of giant dicks, Scott Michaud, not a giant dick. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? Anyways, he has an article at PCPerspective.com. So that are in the show notes. But according to this article, and according to a couple sources, including Mr. Brian Cranston Gordon, there for the oncoming future in 2017, the ports coming out of the Feral house will be using Vulkan as opposed to OpenGL. So here's my crazy theory. We've seen Vulkan renderers in Serious Sam. We've seen the source engine support Vulkan. Epic is slowly rolling out their Vulkan support, and CryEngine. Let's not talk about CryEngine. Less said about them, the better. But there is a technology you can buy. It is a Metal to Vulkan cross compiler. It costs about $50,000. But given Feral's tendency to use shortcuts for getting games ported via their Indirect X, it's not crazy to imagine that we're going to be getting, because they have come out and said that they're going to be using Metal for their macOS ports. So some sort of indirect X to Metal to Vulkan type path that's going to result in crazier optimizations for Intel CPUs and worse optimizations for AMD CPUs. But this is all for games coming in the oncoming year. Sir Scoots here says the Deus Ex might be patched later on. I'm not holding my breath, but I mean, anything is possible.
I mean, it's possible, and it's not unheard of, especially where Deus Ex is concerned. The DirectX 12 patch only was just officially released on Windows Tuesday. And seeing as that Shadow of Mordor patch is still in beta limbo forever, apparently, I'm not entirely confident on Beryl actually patching the game with Vulkan at a later date. But maybe they'll surprise me.
Hey, man, when you say stuff like that, you say it in hopes that you're proven wrong. And, you know, just say no to a lot of stuff because it's like, oh, they'll go back and do everything in Vulkan. That's a lot of work that you're not going to get paid for. So got to keep that in mind. I'm looking forward to seeing how they implement it, what they do, and maybe it'll be good because, you know, Flying Spaghetti Monster knows Deus Ex could really use some live long and prosper. But from Vulkan to VR.
Indeed. So Unity is open sourcing its VR editor. How does the article? There we go. In a bid to accelerate development. So they're literally pulling an AMD. Here's the VR thing. We can't really figure it out beyond this point, so we're just going to let everyone have the sauce, and they can sort it out because we can't. The article also mentions the Unity open source initiative, which was from 2014. And up to this point, I don't think there was anything being open sourced outside of that UI thing that no one cared about. So I'm kind of iffy on the whole open source thing. If you open source some things, that's fine. Just don't attach it to a promise that you made a long time ago that you kind of forgot in the meantime. But we love the Unity guys and Natosha and Levi. We actually interact with them on Twitter and on the G Pluses on a regular basis. So they're really awesome people, and they're actually effectively trying to make Unity an easy to use engine for people to make their games on, even if you're not a programmer, if you don't have the necessary chops to just dive into and code your own engine from the ground up. And this is just them saying, okay, we can't really figure out VR all that well on our own, so we're going to let the community have it, and they will probably do a better job than we just ourselves could do, which is not quite thing.
I mean, you can develop a product up to a point, but for something as nebulous as VR, you really at some point you have to say, we got to put this out in the wild and see what people do with it, because you can support the one narrow use case, but again, because of the nebulousness and sort of the breadth of what VR can encompass, you maybe want to get some other people who are working on new and interesting things to start contributing code, because it's the Epic thing, right? There's a ton of support in Unreal 4 that wouldn't have been there if they hadn't open sourced those components. But one thing that really shocked me out of this article was apparently 70% of VR games are Unity. That is a number I was not expecting.
Again, very easy engine to work in.
Hey, man, if it works and it gets things up and running, but it's like, man, I don't know. I got some bad news for you, Brad, because it's great. They open sourced it, and you can open source this all you want. It's still not going to change the fact that people don't like wearing shut on their heads. I mean, the only people that are still turbo excited about VR are people pushing VR at this point.
And I wonder if Facebook hadn't bought Oculus, would VR still be as prevalent and as relevant as it is nowadays? Because I guess having Facebook money as a way to keep the mainstream media in on it, just to, so they can drive some clicks and actually get some of that money themselves, even when the rest of the internet at large has basically moved on.
I don't know, man. I mean, we're already hearing rumbles of a new version of the HTC Vive coming out, and Facebook is definitely, the Facebook Rift. They're getting ready to launch their touch controls that it should have launched with. And we'll see. I'm still firmly standing by, VR adoption is going to be about as widespread as full racing wheel pedal setups. You might know one person.
It'll progress to the point eventually where it's just going to be like a pair of shades you slap on. But until then, yeah, I agree with you, Vin. It's going to be troubling to get the mainstream adoption, especially with the hardware requirements.
Well, will it be as troubling as never getting that Witcher port?
Oh, you wound me then. So do you, CD Projekt RED. But let's spool up the Booga Booga Drive because it's time for the random speculation game. This sensationalist headline from our games, links to all this is in our show notes. CD Projekt may be preparing to take over to defend against a hostile takeover. Well, not quite. What's actually happening is CD Projekt RED has gone out and they've had a shareholder meeting, and they've changed a couple of the rules. The first and foremost is that they've added a bunch of restrictions on people who own greater than 20% of their shares who want to hold votes without requiring them to buy out a bunch of other shares at a fixed price. In essence, what this could mean is people who are sort of circling around CD Projekt RED trying to buy them out will actually have to put some money where their mouth is. Other than that, it doesn't really mean that much. It could be them shoring up. It could be some financial restructuring. We don't know what's going on behind the books at CD Projekt RED. So any speculation coming out of this thread or this article is just that, speculation. But if we want to play this crazy speculation game, because it's always really fun, we get to spin the wheel of Booga Booga, which if I had a prop there, Ben can add it. Oh, sure. Just make me do this and look like an idiot for the entire segment.
Got it. Done.
What company do you want to see by CD Projekt RED?
Easy. EA, because it's in the game. And then you're going to have good old games powered by EA.
Powered by Origin, by the way, we're shutting it down.
Yeah, no, we would never get the Galaxy thing on Linux at that point. Well, since we're going there...
You're so cute. You think we were actually going to get it now, right? Is it going to be released right after The Witcher comes to...
It's going to be a wine port, Ven. It's going to be a wine port.
It's going to be Play on Linux or Eon at the very least.
Yeah. But no, if I had to say someone actually buying them, ideally, and this is like Dream World level idea.
Spooling up the Booga Booga Drive.
Yeah. Aspire, if they had the money for it.
I don't think Aspire has the money. I too would love to see Aspire take over CD Projekt RED, because then we'll get Linux ports for everything. But yeah. But you know, they'd have to have a good quantity of bubblegum to pull that off, wouldn't you say, Vin?
Maybe a microscope. What is this? This is Rigel the Third? No, just Rigel.
Rigel engine.
Okay, that works. It's a modern re-implementation of the classic DOS game. And I first read that Duke Nukem 3, and I'm like, why is this in the news? And I was like, no, Duke Nukem 2. Wow, old school. I like that.
The one that isn't a platformer.
True, right? Building and running, they have a quick start guide. CMake, how I loathe you. It is a thing. It's very much a prototype, but the first thing I noticed with this is I was scrolling around. I was like, how do you build Windows build instructions? And I was like, you poor things. Things.
No repositories or auto dependency fetching is fun trying to build stuff on Windows. I can't apt-get or yum install anything. I got to find that one executable for that one version of this library.
Right, and that's definitely a thing. But I was digging around. I was like, did they ever release a source for this? And I found posted by an employee, and this is back in 2005. He says, I doubt we even have the source code to this anymore to give to someone like a Nicky Butts to do a port. So good luck with this, Pedro. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of those re-implementations that are working out of not having the code. And we have been known to throw our love at the fine folks behind OpenMW. So if OpenMW can do it, and they've already tried with Ogre 3D, and now they're doing it in OpenSceneGraph, yeah, I think these guys can manage Duke Nukem 2. Yeah.
I just want to point out that this guy is completely insane, because He's taken the tunneling electron microscope approach to getting this game up and running by analyzing memory in DOSBox and running the game and seeing what it actually does and then replicating that in code. So that's a bit mental. That is a way to get a correct reverse engineering. It's going to take a while. So maybe you can help him out. Check it out, github.com/leakoffullguitar/Rigel engine. But it's time to go back to a time when we didn't have fancy computer graphics, and the only thing representing your player character was an @ symbol. This is Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, and they have Crawl 0.19 Dancing for Memory released on November the 1st. And I can tell you right now, there's not much in the way of technical things related to Linux in this release, because this is a literal roguelike where you are a text person running around trying to survive the horrible, horrible things that await you in the ASCII dungeon of doom. But they've added some branching paths. They've added some spells, lots of game balance stuff. You can check out their changelog if you're so inclined. This one actually has a pretty active community. So if you're a part of that, I don't know, don't send us hate mail, or maybe send us some hate mail. Who knows?
Pedro, could you ever get into this? My flatmate, Robert Kennedy, not joking, not that one, but.
Not Robert F. Kennedy.
No. He was huge into like MUDs and stuff like this with text-based, and he was seriously trying to sell it to me. And he's like, no, check it out. And you can go north and all that. You should visualize it in your brain. And I was like, fuck that noise. Unreal Tournament works on Linux. And
yeah. And even if we're talking roguelikes specifically, nowadays you have Dungeons of Dreadmore. Dungeons of Dreadmore is stupidly good. It's one of the best roguelikes of the past decade or so, and it's really, really good, and you don't have to rely on the CLI anymore.
You don't have to rely on the CLI for this game either. It's just HJKL, because it uses VI controls like real men.
If you needed an excuse not to play it, there it is.
So Pedro, you got to hand in your man card. That's just how that works. But we've been waiting long enough. Just give me Nano,
and I will do my thing, and I'll get out of your hair. So this is Mini Lens. It is a very simple game made in the Godot engine, and M Fox Dog in the show note comments was like, Godot! Yep. This one was built in Godot, and the moment I looked at that trailer, I'm like, that seems very similar to an old video pack game that I can't for the life of me remember the name of, and I spent like a half an hour trying to remember the name of it, but I couldn't.
Hey man, it's got guides for building levels, so I mean, all right, right on.
Yeah. Yes, it does, and it's a very simple concept of a game. The robot that you're controlling can't jump, and you have to push the radioactive barrels into the ocean, as it were. And in order to do that, you have to blow up boxes, like solve teeny tiny logic puzzles. The levels are all really small, and some of the solutions are deceptively simple. It's just that you're already feeling constrained the moment you start. It's like, oh, I can't jump, so how do I do this? But actually, I played through the tutorial and the first batch of levels. Really, really well done puzzle game. Very simple for what it looks like, and the music tends to grate really quickly. But no, it's actually not bad.
I mean, it's a shame you have that 500 megahertz single core Pentium 3, right? Because you can't split up an audio player and mute the audio and play some music. No, this is just a silly puzzle game written in Godot. I kind of get a bit of a Steven Sausage Roll vibe from it, just in terms of the puzzles and how you typically go about solving them. Not to like the same insane degree that Steven Sausage Roll will fuck with you and like will give you hope, only to dash it in front of you and go, "That's what you get, son."
Yeah, and it kind of speaks to the Godot engine. It's great. This thing is available on everything, including your mum, even HTML5. You can just play it right there. Don't have to bother with a download. Personally, I think it needs more bricks, and as J-Baby just said, maybe a couple of sausages. But it looks like a very fun learning experience. Go make your own levels. Surprise yourself or surprise us.
And it supports everything.
Right.
Well, that's Godot for you. Coming up next, there is a divide in my pants? Let's examine it. A game cast divided simply cannot stand. And with this, we have two opposing sides, Team Intel and Team AMD. Who will become the winner of this augmented nightmare, and what will it bode for humanity? This is Deus Ex Human Revolution, or not Human Revolution, Mankind Divided. I keep screwing that up. This is from Human Revolution was the last one. This is from IDOS Montreal. Hi, Maddie, who I assume works there because Montreal. And Feral Interactive, written on the Dawn engine. You can pick it up for your standard AAA price of about $60, though if you're in Canada, you're paying $70 because, haha, fuck Canada. So what is it? The year is 2029, and mechanically augmented humans have now been deemed outcasts, living a life of complete and total segregation from the rest of society, much like the rest of 4chan. Now an experienced covert operative, Adam Jensen, is forced to operate in the world that has grown to despise his kind. Armed with a new arsenal of state-of-the-art weapons and augmentations, he must choose the right approach, along with who to trust in order to unravel the vast worldwide conspiracy. There's a joke there, I'm just not going to do it. And full disclosure, Feral sent us keys. We got the complete pack. So we got all the lovely DLC. Thank you, fine folks at Feral. We're going to keep shitting on your game right now. So let's kick this off. Then, or actually, no, we got mixed with the working, shiny sounds controls, and fun for our categories of Doom. And we also got 1 chair equals blah, 2 chairs equals meh, 3 chairs equals pretty good, 4 chairs equals amazeballs. I completely screwed that up. Whatever. We're doing it live. It's Deus Ex. It's more effort than they put into the sport. Anyways, Ben, did it make with the working?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Feral, we love you. Don't listen to Jordan. He's Jordan. Anyway, over here on the box of business, how did it run? Well, let's just get this out of the way. I should note I did not meet the minimum requirements for this game. And we're not just talking about operating system for once, because the minimum is an AMD FX 8350, where I have the AMD 8150 clocked at 4 gigajoules, but, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are not going to meet the minimum requirement, so I'm still going to chime in and say this fun section, review section, is still going to be valid, because people want to know if they might have a chance of playing this game. I'm a little confused with the operating system requirements, because on the Steam store, it says it requires 16.10. I'm running 1604 LTS, and I didn't get the nag screen when I launched it. Maybe something you want to look into. Deus Ex, mixed with the working. First, let's just get this out of the way. With, oh my god, it's tracking all the things I do. So does your ISP. Chill the fuck out. I'm not a fan of not the DLC, but the in-game purchase type stuff. I agree with you on that other thing. The initial load time on the box of business with the 8150, 980 powered, displayed at UHD, but this was a 1080 title. Probably should have tried 720. Didn't think about it. The initial load times, again, hella high. You're looking at like 4 minutes just to walk into this business. It does say it requires 8 gigajoules of RAM. Unlike Mad Max, it said it required 8, didn't really use it. This one, you better have it, or you're going to have a bad time. So I had to shut everything down with my 8 gigajoules. Couldn't reliably get this thing to stay over 60, even with a 980, with everything set to low. That was not a very good experience. And wait, it just froze, which is going to do that. I think we all had that problem. But unfortunately, after it froze for the first time, it did that 4-minute load again, which just really sucks. But after it does that, you can load the game at a regular speed, but then it did the 4-minute load thing again. This time it's like 50-50 chance of whether or not I'm going to get into this title in under 6 minutes. So, yeah, mixed with the working on that one, kind of thin, but the other bug I have right now is a perpetual load screen when I'm trying to travel to wherever the Foxville on the tube. Maybe that'll get sorted. Maybe it's something I did, but I guess in conclusion, I can say 100% it technically launches. So, yeah, that's technically going to get 2 chairs.
Yeah, this is another Feral game that can't run on UHD. My good friend over there, Brother Ven, he's on Team Red. He's got the AMD processors. I'm on the i7-6700K with the GTX 980, and it's a little better than that. No, I hadn't run into any crashes. I ran into one issue where in the middle of one of those conversation cinematics, the dialogue didn't trigger, and I just had reverse shot reverse shot with Mr. Jensen and the journalist he was talking to perpetually. I had to actually kill the game. And I also had another weird bug where it wouldn't let me rotate 360 degrees. If I was moving to the left, I could move 180 degrees, but if I had to rotate another however many degrees to actually make the circle, but in the other direction. But beyond that, the really, really awful load times are really, really awful. And really beyond that, no real issues. I've put about 6 or 7 or 8 hours into the game at this point. So the sheer number of issues I've run into are fairly low, aside from the fact that it will crawl at UHD with the i7 and the 980 at UHD, but beyond that, 4 chairs.
Yeah, so just to balance things out, I too am on Team Red. I have the AMD FX 8370E. It's overclocked at 4.2 gigahertz, and I have a GTX 1080, 16 gigabytes of 1866 megahertz RAM, and 2 SSDs, 2 Samsung 850 EVOs in YOLO RAID. So when that first load took 4 minutes, a full 4 minutes to get through, I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I opened up HTOP, and it was using 2 threads. 2 at 100%. The rest of them just, nope. Okay. Then I started playing the game, and in the first 5 hours, I had 3 freezes. The third freeze, as in the game, actually completely froze, and thankfully it let go of the keyboard so I could just Alt-Tab and kill it. But when I looked at HTOP, systemd's core dump module was pegging one of the threads of my CPU at 100%, and it kept on pegging it for a full 3 minutes before it finally went away. Wow, you managed to crash a systemd module. Wow. There's definitely a bottleneck in this game because it's really bad. The performance is really, really bad, and I'm guessing it's CPU related. It's almost as if we're talking about a feral port. Oh, wait, we are. There's also a benchmark in the game, yes, which it's about as useless as Tomb Raiders and about twice as bottlenecked as F1 and Crit Autosport. There will be a link in the show notes for you to look at my benchmark results. It's completely pointless. So, and there was an issue that I ran into where I couldn't literally save the game anymore. This is a known bug. You can work around it by going back to the main menu, opening up the shop. That's the microtransaction shop, by the way. You have to look at one of the items in detail. You don't need to buy anything, and then you can go back in game, and it'll let you save the game again. Now, Hanlon's Razor tells us not to attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. But something tells me there's a bit of malice at work here. And just to put the cherry on top, I, like Ven, also ran into the infinite loading screen. So for me, it gets 2 chairs.
So I'm the other person on Team Blue here with a 4790K. And yeah, the first thing I noticed is when I wanted to download the game, it shows up as a 25 gigs download when the game is actually 57 gigabytes. So Steam gets all confused and it will almost finish the download. And in the end, the download will seem really slow and it will take a long time. That's because it needs to download the other 25 gigs. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it got installed pretty good. I mean, nothing to notice. I am running the recommended OS, so that's Ubuntu 16.10, and the recommended driver, which is the NVIDIA 367.57. And yeah, I haven't had one crash except one, but I'll talk about this a little bit later. Same as everyone else, I had a very long load time. The second one was a little bit shorter, but still very long. And all the load times after those ones were really short. I mean, just entering the game, when you load the levels and everything, it's a bit long, but not horrible. But I mean, with a game that size, you would kind of expect this. Yeah, I ran the benchmark, the in-game benchmark on medium, and it wasn't looking that great. I got an average of 40 FPS, lots of tearing. It didn't look that great. But while in-game, it was much better, and I got between 50 and 70 FPS also on medium. No tearing, very smooth gameplay. It looked great. I did try it on Ultra, and I did get about between 20 and 30 FPS. So it was kind of playable, but still it was not as good as playing it on medium. And the difference was not really noticeable. So, and I ran into one thing that was really interesting. It's for the first time I hit the limit of those 3.5 gigs on my GTX 970. This is the first time it happened. And the loading screen began to get really slow, and I went to do something else. And when I came back, the game had crashed to the desktop. So I'm not going to blame either Feral or Eidos for that, but I'm going to blame NVIDIA. But yeah, I mean, if you have the correct hardware and the correct drivers and operating system, you're going to have a very good experience with the game. That means if you have an Intel CPU with a lot of gigahertz and a good and recent NVIDIA GPU, preferably of the 10 series, that would be better. So
remember,
I'm going
kids,
to give it 4
you have good hardware, not a good combination. Yeah,
the pieces are not put in the right order.
Yeah, I too have troubles when I'm trying to stick my video card into my CPU socket. Anyways, that is 3 chairs for Makes with Working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds. Ven, were your prosthetic eyes blown away, or does this look like some Ghost in the Shell bad CGI?
The correct answer to that is yes, as always. The one thing that's driving me insane about this game, when it comes to Shiny and Sounds, is totally on the developers and whoever did the UI layout. Put the quit button far away from everything else. That just pisses me off. I don't know why that's there. I mean, it took me, granted, I'm not a clever man, but it was like a good 8 seconds, and I was like, where's the quit button? I have a pretty big monitor. I was like, oh, it's all the way over there for fuck you. That's why. That's neither here nor there. Well, what does it look like? Pretty much got to play it on low, Brad. That's the thing. So just keep that in mind when I'm about to wrap here. It kind of sort of looks almost as good as Half-Life 2 on Fugly, but maybe not quite. If you cut it up to just to medium, which I'm guessing is a sweet spot for most people to be able to play it, it starts looking like a AAA title from 2016, but really, if I'm running at a medium outdoor frame rates for that, it's going to be like low 20s, not necessarily playable. It is kind of jarring how this game likes to switch back and forth between, you know, pre-rendered full motion video and in-game. It's like doing that, because sometimes you can be playing it on Fugly, but you'll see like the pre-rendered recording, like, oh man, I wish it looked like that, and then it'll drop you back into Fugly mode. That's definitely a thing. The voice acting, it's all right. I mean, I hope it is. It has to be, really, when you think about it, because fuck all, there's a lot of voice talking, dialogue dumping in Deus Ex. Not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes you kind of feel like you're just sitting around watching more of a cinematic experience than you are participating in one. Not really much in the way of background noise, background music, whatever you want to call it, outside of just the environments themselves. No complaints. It's not bad. It's not good, but yeah, when it comes to those looks, I'm going to give it 2 because it works.
Yeah, I got to play this game on high, unlike the rest of these Philistines, so I got the full graphical fidelity. So I got a question. Does anyone else have that issue where the game will suddenly switch to windowed mode after you die and you hit escape, or you hit enter to load your last save?
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, that was pissing me off for a while. But I mean, this is a game that looks and sounds triple AE. It came out earlier this year. Although the guy they have voicing Adam Jensen sounds like a really, really out of it Keanu Reeves impersonator. And what was Keanu too busy filming Bill and Ted 3? I mean, he would have been perfect for this. Though I will say the cinematics sometimes they look a bit Xboxy in quality. Like I've played some equivalent looking games on the Xbox 360. I don't feel like I don't feel like it's pushing that much of the graphical end of things, because going back a couple weeks to another Feral port, Mad Max, where it seamlessly blended the pre-rendered cutscene and the in-game footage after you level up, you're not 100% sure that you have control of the game just yet, and that's what I'm used to now. I'm spoiled. But the voice acting is solid. There is most of the background noise is people talking in the background, which is actually kind of nice because sometimes you can eavesdrop on people's conversations, although it's always the same, like 4 or 5 different conversations. Either way, this looks good, although I am not blown away by this. I will give it 3 chairs.
Yeah, the visual aesthetics look good, but they're very, very janky. And the lip sync, which you're going to be seeing a lot of, because there's a lot of cutscenes, there's a lot of dialogue, and yeah, I'll get into that more in the fun segment. But the lip sync is just slightly out of whack. It could be due to the poor performance, but it's very noticeable either way. Sound-wise, though, I have no complaints. The voice acting is spot on. The background music, those very few times that you actually notice it because you're trying to sneak around a place, it gives me a Metro Last Light vibe. It's pretty good. And I wish I could appreciate the audio-visual acuity, but when you have to play the game at lower settings in order to maintain some semblance of performance, especially on a 1080, it's hard, man. You're killing me, Feral. You're killing me. 3 chairs.
Yeah, well, I thought that this was easily one of the better looking games here we have on Linux. Even if you have to run it in medium settings, you can. Running it in higher settings, you would get like some minor improvements, but with a lot of costs in performance. So yeah, you can run it in medium. It will still look really great. I've noticed this thing with the loss of lip sync with some cutscenes. It happened once when the cutscene did stutter for a bit, and then after the stutter, the lip sync was lost. So I think that's tied to an issue in performance or something like this. Yeah, there's the first cutscenes. There's a 12-minute recap about human revolution. So I think this uses footage from the Xbox 360 game. So this won't look as good as the other cutscenes. Strange things I noticed is that you have the cutscenes, some cutscenes that are at 200 frames per second, and some other at 30. I don't know why that is, but I mean, this doesn't really matter. The sound and music is really good. It's what you would expect from a AAA title. Very good voice acting, sound effect, nothing to complain about. It really looks great. Yeah, I mean, I'm giving it 4 chairs.
All right, well, that's 3 chairs for Shiny and the Sounds. Up next is Controls. Ben, how did it control?
Okay, we got to make up some time. It works. WASD works with your gerbil. It's brilliant. Yes, you could play with this with a controller. I touched the X-Clone controller. Things moved, but if you do that and you play any type of first-person shooter with a controller, you should have your hands chopped off and you don't get augmented and replacey things. One little downside, not a bug, but the gerbil sensitivity, wicked high out of the box. I had to crank that down to like 30%, and I like very fast gerbils. Giggity. So, boom. Finally get to give it 4 chairs.
Yeah, I noticed that too with the mouse sensitivity. I cranked it down to about 50% of the default setting, and it worked fine for me, but whoa. Also, boo Feral! I plugged in the PlayStation 4 controller because I thought, hey, Mad Max had correct button prompts. This game should as well. It doesn't. I get Xbox prompts. Boo! Hiss! You had a nice little streak too, and you ruined it, Feral. You ruined it. I will say, though, if you want to actually play this game with a controller, Steam controller. Use your little touchpad for aiming. Use your thumb. It is better than using a joystick. I played it exclusively with keyboard and mouse because it's a shooter, and that's how my brain works. Though figured it'd be worth a mention. And yeah, I mean, the controls are there. They're a little spread out all over the keyboard. I'd prefer a little more better consolidation. Also, the knockout thing says hit Q, and I hit Q and it executes them. What's up with that? Beyond that, everything works the way I expected it to. It hijacks the mouse sensitivity buttons on my mouse, which is kind of annoying if I want to adjust the sensitivity on the fly, especially for a shooter, but whatever, 3 cheers.
Yeah, playing first-person games with a controller is grounds for getting yourself sectioned. And I guess that's fitting considering the theme of the game. But, all things considered, this, even on a technical level when it comes to the controls, you can rebind all the keys and set individual sensitivities for the X and Y axis on the mouse movement. I don't think I've ever seen a game on Linux do that. Kind of amazing. So, bonus points for that. But I still have to think in a chair because if you do change the controls, and if you are like me, you got your mouse on your left hand and you use the keyboard directional arrow keys for movement, you will have to rebind a lot of stuff. And if you do, the prompts, when they show up in game proper, will still show up with the default key. That can get a bit confusing at times. So for me, it gets 3 chairs.
Mm-hmm. So controls, there are lots of them. And just like mankind, I'm divided on whether we should play it with a keyboard and mouse or a controller. I mean, I tried it with the Xbox 360 controller, worked fine, but didn't really have a good time. Then again, it's an Xbox 360 controller. This is not a game for the Xbox 360, though, so makes a lot of sense. I tried it with the Steam controller after that, and I had a much better experience. But you'll have to launch it from Steam Big Picture. Otherwise, the controls will be all over the place. The mappings will be wrong, and I guess you'll have to launch it at least once. I haven't tried it several times, but yeah, the Steam Big Picture configuration will sort everything out, and it will run just perfectly after that. So, yeah, for everything except precise aiming, controller works better than the keyboard and mouse. And it's a first-person game, yes, but it's not really a shooter, or at least it doesn't have to be one. For all of this, then the Steam controller is really the best way to play the game. And for the shooter parts, yeah, keyboard and mouse works better. It's just the same thing as with Alien Isolation. I had the same problem. Really good with the Steam controller, but also it works well with keyboard and mouse. I thought of that. It's the type of game that if you go and don't play it for 2 months and you go back to this game, then you won't remember a thing and you will have to relearn everything because it gets confusing. There are lots of controls. So yeah, I'll get it 3 chairs for the controls.
All right, well, that's 3 cheers for controls. Let's wrap this up then. Did you have fun playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided?
Oh, man. See, this segment, I'm going to say let's not make up some time because Strider took that as like to see if he can do a solid 10 on the control section. Getting past the tutorial on this motherfucker. Oh, man. It's on hard mode. It's good times. I kind of enjoyed that. I was like, all right, this game's curb checking me. It's like, all right, I guess I definitely have to learn to play it your way. But unfortunately, 2 hours in, I don't have an idea what's going on. And I put 4 hours into it. Since that, really got up to the point in the game so far to where it's like, okay, well, you have to start juggling which augments you have activated or you'll overheat because we haven't, Hyper 212 Evos or a thing in the past. And you can't stick them all over your body. Yeah, no, really lost a lot of interest for this right then and there. But that was just adding on top of, you're playing as, Captain Badass. You have like the government augments and secret shit. No, you're like this little 10 god fucker, man. Anything can kill you. Why are people scared of these people? Because you can just get like a pool noodle or something like that. But you got to play it as a stealth game, Vin. I was like, really? All right. Is this a stealth game? Or is it an action game? Is it a spreadsheet simulator? For fuck help you. Look at the damn menus in this game and you're like, ah. Because the answer to those three questions is a resounding yes. It is all three of those things. And I don't think it particularly does any of those three things particularly well. I mean, just the amount of crap it wants me to keep track of is just off-putting for me. But like I said, I'm not a clever man. So that might not necessarily be a bad thing if I gave two damns about the character or what's going on. I simply don't. I don't know the backstory. Mad Max, love that game. It had a slow burn. I was over an hour into it, like, meh, I don't know about this. But it finally caught, it ignited, and I was like, okay, I'm in the world. We're doing things. And this, yep, 2 hours, well, 4 hours in now, and I don't care about the world. And I really don't know what's going on. Trugs left a comment in the notes. He was like, I'm 8 hours in. I still don't really know exactly what's going on. And I was like, okay, gotcha. But, you know, it's a bit sad because I was very hyped about this game since its announcement. And, you know, even though I don't know or didn't know what a Deus Ex, what it was, if this is what it is, I am kind of, you know, glad that I've been missing out the whole time. But if you look at the Steam reviews for this game, they're mixed. And I think they're mixed for a reason. So, yeah, no, sir. No, sir. I didn't like it. It hurts me. One chair.
Harsh buzz, man. Harsh buzz. I do like how this game's concept itself boils down to, you have to kill them. But make sure no one's watching when you do that. Once you get out of the tutorial level, which is pretty fucking hard. Especially because you don't have any hit points, by the way. Once you get your augments and you're able to select them, max out your hit points. You'll do yourself a favor. But early on in the game, there was this thing where you have to infiltrate this one guy's lab to get your augments unlocked. And they're like, oh, you can't go through the front door. You got to find a way to sneak in. And so I go and hack all the keypads and consequently learning how to play the hacking minigame, which is kind of shitty. I scouted all the locations. I went to all the rooftops and I couldn't find a way in until I discovered really the way to do it is if you sort of hide in a corner and shoot one of the guys with the tranquilizer darts and start a firefight, it's positioned in such a way that the cops won't see you. So you just have to kill everyone else. Which brings me to one of the things that the game does really, really well. Really tense firefights because you don't have a lot of health and you can't take a lot of hits. It makes those firefights seem like you're fighting for every little inch of ground that you get, which I really like. I think I like that sort of gritty style of gunplay in a cyberpunk game. One thing, though, that really bugs me, super inconsistent falling height limit, because at the beginning of the game, in the tutorial, just before you complete it, you have to leap off a building and land, which you subsequently lose the ability to do, apparently. And even if it's a little too high, like, I can, like, a roof that might, like, sprain your ankle or something, might break something at the very, very worst. No, your neck snapped, your legs just shot straight into your torso and you died. Yeah. So the game itself is pretty dense, and it has a very dense storyline. I spend a lot of the time just listening to the freaking cutscenes and going through all the conversation options and reading all the lore because I don't know what the hell is going on here. Like Truggy, I'm about 8 hours in. I have no fucking clue what's happening. I got to the Golem City thing, which is like the second stage. Breaking into a police department, and that's about where I am right now. I'd like to actually classify this game as sort of a weird hybrid between like first-person shooters, a role-playing game, and a point-and-click adventure game, because so much of your quest lines are go and rifle through every single object this person owns until you find the one thing you need to progress, and then go back.
Kleptomania simulator.
Yes, and you're going to be walking a lot, and you have a limited run. You'll be walking for a while. They might as well just call this game Deus Ex Lord of the Rings. But you can't even shove gerbils into the microwave. Compared to the open worldness of Mad Max, this is fairly lacking. Also, where the hell is all the goddamn ammo? I had a conversation with Pedro's like, oh yeah, it's all over the place. I looked everywhere. I could not find ammo. I started off with the tranquilizer gun, spent all that ammo because it's a really, really good weapon, and then realized, all right, well now I'm just shooting my way through everything else. I was also a little disappointed. I went and unlocked all the hacking and remote hacking stuff, and remote hacking is less useful than I had hoped. Beyond that, it's an interesting game. I haven't hit that part yet where it's starting to be fun though, so I can only give it 2 chairs.
Yeah, there's one thing I love in certain video games, which is when they don't lock you into a particular playstyle and actively reward you for adopting multiple skill trees. You want to play Ghost in the Shell? You can. You want to play Call of Duty and just go in guns blazing? You can. There's a reason that Fallout 2 is still my all-time favorite game. Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, actively, just like Fallout 2, actively rewards you in exploring and doing things in different ways. Even sometimes, okay, you already found a path that you need in order to progress, go back, find another path, get more stuff. It's really, really fun. And I think, having played Human Revolution before, I think that Mankind Divided actually does that much better than Human Revolution did. For all the complaints I've read and heard about Mankind Divided in specific, about it being atrociously short, it is definitely very densely packed. But I still have trouble justifying €50 for what is little more than an expansion pack. Granted, it does improve on Human Revolution in several ways, but it also introduces microtransactions on top of those €50. There's also the issue that for a game, you don't really spend a lot of time playing it. I mean, most of your time you're sitting on your ass, looking at a semi-blank slate attempt to have conversations with the characters around him. Now, I'm all for narrative in a video game if it complements the gameplay, and Mankind Divided is a perfect example of what happens when the development team had to shove an entire novel's worth of narrative into a pamphlet. They didn't so much summarize it as they just made the proverbial font small enough for it all to fit in that pamphlet. So how about, instead of taking away my agency as a player, just so I can sit through another overlong cutscene / dialogue / takedown animation, you let me keep doing my thing, maybe? Half-Life 2 did narrative gameplay very well, and that game came out in 2004. That was 12 years ago, man. 2 chairs.
Yeah, so I got the game installed this morning. So I haven't had the time to fully I have played like less than 2 hours, so it's not really enough to give a proper judgment of this as fun value. But the little I played, I did enjoy lots. And I mean, it's really well done. And this is a game that I will want to play some more and possibly even finish. I mean, I do tend to try to finish all the games I start, but this is a game that I will be playing in the future. So this is the first Deus Ex game I've really played. I mean, I maybe have played 1 hour of the first one, but that's about it. So I can't really compare it to the other ones in the series. But as a game by itself, it's really solid. Also, I don't like games that are too long, like 50 hours. It's a bit too much for me. So judging from howlongtobeat.com, they say it's between 20 and 30 hours long. So that's just about right for me. I mean, it's even on the long side, but if it keeps on being as good as it is right now, as the beginning is, well, yeah, I mean, I have no problem with this, and I'll keep playing it until the end. So 3 chairs for me.
All right, well, that's 2 chairs for the fun section. If we tally all that up, that is 2 chairs total. So let's wrap this up. Ben, despite the fact that Mick Foley does not get bisected in this game, what did you think of Mankind Divided?
It was a game that, I don't know, man. It was just trying to be too many things, man. It's like a Swiss Army knife of nope. And I don't know. It's a bit dense for me. It's so much to take in. And then again, like I said, usually after I put 4 hours into something, I'm not telling you whether or not you should like it. I'm telling you what I think of it. That's all we're doing. And it needs work. It needs work. I mean, the story's not there to drive. And he's like, but the performance, you could have played at, 20 frames a second. Yes, I can play a game at 20 frames a second all the fucking way through like I did with Tomb Raider, but I like that story. I sit through that game before it got patched to where it was performant enough, not to be a slideshow. It didn't matter. This, even though I can get, 30, maintain 30 in there, it's like, I don't really care, man.
Yeah, it's actually nothing short of ironic how an AMD gaming evolved game, because the branding is actually there, and it works like ass on AMD FX CPUs. But then again, you need to keep in mind this is a Linux context we're talking about. It's a shame about the performance. I could even be persuaded to finish it, just like Ven, I finished Tomb Raider before it was patched. If it weren't for all the random lockouts, because when I see the game freeze, I don't want to go back in. I don't.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a game that you pick up and play like 5 minutes, because 5 minutes is basically the time it will get to get back into the game. So if you want to play this game, well, be prepared to go there for like an hour or two, or if you don't, it's not really worth it. Yeah, but for first experience in Deus Ex, really good one for me. So I have the correct hardware. I didn't have any crashes. Looks good. And yeah, it looks like fun to me. Really.
Yeah, I like Cyberpunk. I like it as a genre. I think this is a game that could be good given some polish. And also maybe smooth narrative exposition into the gameplay as opposed to making me sit through a ton of it. But beyond that, like I said, I'm very upset that Mick Foley was not bisected at any point during this game called Mankind Divided. It is a complete misnomer. But coming up next, we talk about boners. I don't know why. Well, we do. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you should totally be watching us live. We have a lot of fun in between segments. It's something, well, even if you're not watching us live, Ven every now and again likes to put the full show up on the tubes. But speaking of the tubes, let's get into some hate. Some real hate coming from the YouTube comments. Or, if you go to LinuxGameCast.com and you hit the contact button, you can also send us some hate. Right then and there, just fill out the form, prove you're smarter than whatever CAPTCHA happens to be going on there. If you're a game developer, make sure you will send us 3 Steam keys for your game, please. Pretty please.
No, I have limited Steam keys.
Yes, apparently the bits are very expensive nowadays. You just can't ask them, especially after the Steam Dev Days talk came out and said that it don't cost people anything.
Listen, have you heard about the exchange rate to ASCII? It's crazy.
But yeah, you can also, leave us a comment on YouTube, leave us a comment on the social networks, or even on Patreon. Chances are, if it's good enough, we will feature it right here, right now. So, what do we got this week?
We got new digs. This is from Nathan, and he says, Lolo Pedro. Yeah. Screw sleep and travel time. Move in with Japsectacy. I'd pay more to see that resulting video than a Ven with one N. So it's not our Ven, it's the other Ven. Jodan. That is the Jordos equivalent of Shodan and Sandy Cage match, but only a little. Okay. I guess Pedro, do you have anything do you have any response? Any witty retort?
I don't know who single N Ven is or Jodan, so my money's on Sandy on that one. And I guess he meant Jacksepticeye, but he actually spelled Jackspeticae.
I always read that as Septiceye, and I'm not going to stop, so...
But I don't know. I think I watched one of his videos when someone mentioned, Jacksepticeye is like the new thing on YouTube. Okay. So I go there. Oh, he's an Irish Markiplier. Right.
Mm-hmm. So, coming up next. See, look, Strider, you made it in the after show after all. He sent a little hate mail to a link. to something on Reddit. So let's just cut through the middleman, get over to Reddit. Hey man, people are still talking about a virtual cam. Trollwoot had to write, is it okay if I got a little boner because of your voice, thinking that I submitted this video? Hellsooth, no. not in the sexual way, but, well, maybe, you know, hey man, it's 2016. Being attracted to another man's voice is 100% okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But kind of like later on, what did you say? I'm just a fan of them. You can send that to Vendo. Thanks. All right, Strider, you send that to me. I think he had his lungs removed and replaced with literal chocolate. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, considering Ven hates chocolate, I would say that's a fitting punishment for him.
I don't know. Does soy chocolate sound good?
Why would I need soy chocolate?
It sounds extra kinky.
Hey, man, it's literal chocolate, so it's not actual chocolate.
not figurative chocolate either. Literal chocolate. All right. Up next, this is from Evandro.
Oh, Evandro, yeah. He says, it looks like Steam granted me with some showcase thing. This is what my profile showcases. And he sent us a screenshot. Yeah, Steam will do that.
Oh, look at those handsome fuckers in the little middle there.
Yeah.
But Evandro, why are you running Unity? Ew. Ew.
Well, we've had Strider on this very show just a couple of minutes ago. So,
I still say
there are people
time.
who actually use Unity for some reason.
I don't know, man. I think that's a cool idea. If you have some weird screenshots, it's like, hey, where do you watch LGC? Keep it YouTube safe-ish, but get creative. If you want to send some of those in, we'll definitely throw those in the hate mail, man. Thanks for plugging us on the Steam, because we're horrible at self-promotion, in case you haven't figured that out. That's why it's always important to share the show, be it on the Twitters or the Facebuds or the G+, because we're not very good at doing it ourselves. But, should we cue the music?
I guess we should, yeah.
All right. Because on that bombshell, let's cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Time. Fortunately, that time's going to change. Maybe I'll get out of this weird time funk I'm in, wibbly-wobbly stuff. That'll make me a happier panda. I'm at Vinstone on the Twitter nets, plus Vinstone on G+. Scream at me. I will probably, almost definitely, scream back in your direction.
I'm Jordan Svung. I have surpassed humanity and had my skin replaced with literal chocolate. White chocolate. You can find me at the Burning Pool. Oh, man. Or plus Jordan Svung on Google+. I don't look like an actual chocolate, man. Come on.
Well, I wish I looked like an actual chocolate man. I, on the other hand, am Pedro Mateos. You can find me at Unaccounted4 on Twitter or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+.
And remember, kids, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, beautiful, beautiful people that... I think that's what we need to say. You know, remember, if violence doesn't solve your problem, you're not using enough of it, or you're using literal chocolate.
You got to stick with that figurative chocolate, man. Otherwise, you might go a little overboard.
What about quizzitive chocolate?
Bigger fan of the proverbial chocolate.
How about hot chocolate?
Actual chocolate.
That's just incredibly racist, Ben. Why would you even say that? Jeez.
What about the ugly chocolates, man? Come on.
There's no such thing as an ugly chocolate, Pedro. They're all
whooshing noises I make when I stay the fuck out of this conversation.
5 dudes.